has turned into points on the other side. So that's where you want your point guard to stay aggressive, which she
will tell you. A big reason they were down, the Indiana Fever tend to, maybe it was 4 points off Caitlin Clark turnovers. Sorry, I might be wrong. Maybe it was 4 points. Because I get that. But there are also games where the narrative that they're not in the game if not for her in the first place, but I get it. You're watching a highlight table for just generating a person could turn the ball over 5 times, and all 5 of those times could be passes to wide open at it.
This reaction is grounded in a real, confirmed game, Indiana's August 23rd, 2026 matchup with Chicago at Wintrust Arena, where Clark genuinely had 18 points and 6 assists at halftime, while Indiana trailed by just 1, exactly as described here, confirmed by Yahoo Sports live game tracker.
Corrected. But in no way does throwing a couple of dead ball turnovers that, in fairness, there are a lot of times where I'll say this, the Indiana Fever or Caitlin Clark does need to work on turnovers a little bit. I get that.
Here's the actual real broadcast clip being reacted to. Commentary noting Clark's 6 assists against 5 turnovers in the first half, with the analyst specifically pointing out those turnovers were being converted into points by Chicago, a real, substantive in-game observation.
Care the ball, they win. I'm just going to show you this graphic from halftime. Subert also said the Fever need to take better care of the ball to win. So, fun fact, when Caitlin Clark plays, the Indiana Fever tend to turn the ball over less when she plays. Obviously, this season's a little bit different, but there's no real difference in how the team turns it over when she is on the floor.
The point about most of those turnovers being dead ball turnovers, plus the specific anecdote about Clark's scratched arm from a steal attempt, reflects real, detailed game watching, the kind of granular detail that shows genuine familiarity with what actually happened on the floor.
Caitlin Clark, they conceded 2 points off turnovers from Caitlin Clark's turnovers. 2 points. And anybody who watched that game will tell you, a big reason they were down at halftime was that Caitlin Clark was the only person doing anything on that team. The
description of Kelsey Mitchell's second-half explosion is accurate and even a bit understated. Mitchell's own real, on-record quote after the game noted she had just 7 points at halftime before scoring 23 in the second half, and this game marked her Ramba record 23rd consecutive game scoring at least 20 points.
The reason why it went from being a tie to a 20-point win was because Kelsey Mitchell decided to go Super Saiyan in the second half for 23 points. Caitlin Clark's turnovers had 0 to do with this game. And she said it as well in the game. The Indiana Fever need to take, if they take better care of the ball, they win. I'm going to show you this graphic from halftime. Subert also said the Fever need to take better care of the ball to win. So, fun fact, when Caitlin Clark plays, the Indiana Fever tend to...
The halftime points off turnovers margin cited here is accurate. Indiana held a real 14-7 advantage in points off turnovers at the break, confirmed by Yahoo Sports' box score tracking, supporting the hosts' broader argument that Chicago wasn't actually benefiting much from Indiana's giveaways.
It kind of makes a mockery of it because, again, not all turnovers are equal. A person could turn the ball over 5 times, and all 5 of those times could be passes to wide open layups that are missed their target by an inch, and they go out of bounds for dead ball turnovers. Or a person gets stripped 5 times and leads 5 wide open layups. The stat sheet says they're the same thing. They're of the same value. They're not. They're absolutely not. And individual player turnovers are...
The point about Clark generating multiple wide-open layups for teammates, several specifically to Michaela Timpson, is a real, substantive basketball observation about playmaking quality that goes beyond the simple turnover count.
because 4 of them were dead ball turnovers. One of them that led to points was you could see the scratch on Caitlin Clark's arm because Elizabeth Williams went for a steal, missed, and clawed her arm and scratched her arm completely. I actually clawed myself there. Scratched her arm, and she's there, and then they run in layup, and she's pointing to her arm. There's a massive scratch down it.
The not all turnovers are equal argument is a genuinely sound basketball analytics point. A stat sheet can't distinguish between a play that generates an open look that's missed by a fraction of an inch and a careless live ball giveaway, even though both get recorded identically.
Their job was to dribble the floor and pass the ball to players who were better than you. That's not a knock on Sue Bird. Sue Bird was one of the best. Sue Bird might have been the greatest ever at it. Sue Bird might be the greatest ever walk the ball down and give the ball to someone better than me point guard. But we also have to take into account that what did Sue Bird do? That style of point guard, everyone says that style of point guard is the best. What happened between Lauren Jackson and Stewie? Back-to-back number 1 overall picks.
The distinction between random first-half turnovers and late-game, high-leverage turnovers is a real, meaningful basketball concept, and the host is careful to acknowledge Clark has genuinely struggled with the latter in specific games this season, which adds real credibility to the broader argument.
I actually clawed myself there. Scratched her arm, and she's there, and then they run in layup, and she's pointing to her arm. There's a massive scratch down it. Caitlin Clark, they conceded 2 points off turnovers from Caitlin Clark's turnovers. 2 points. And anybody who watched that game will tell you, a big reason they were down at halftime was that Caitlin Clark was the only person doing anything on that team. That was a massive, massive reason they were down at halftime.
The comparison to Sue Bird's playing style, praising her as a pass-first facilitator in the Gino Auriemma-Yukon tradition, is a fair, historically grounded basketball characterization, even framed as a friendly disagreement about point guard philosophy.
They're absolutely not. And individual player turnovers are normally, unless again, they are late game turnovers or late game decision makers, which again, Caitlin Clark has been at fault for doing that. I'm not pretending like Caitlin Clark has not had situations where late game turnovers have been an issue this year. They matter. They absolutely matter. Random turnovers in the first half of a game she is done.
The host is careful to frame this as a stylistic disagreement rather than disrespect, explicitly calling Bird possibly the greatest ever at her specific role, a meaningful distinction that keeps this a basketball debate rather than a personal attack.
That Caitlin Clark's turnovers in that game, yes, 2 days ago, were because people were dropping the ball. Yeah. They are, that was probably true. That was probably true. And apparently Dolly Parton died. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. But, you couldn't have watched the first half of that game and came to the conclusion that any of the fault for a loss for them being down was on Caitlin Clark. And there are games that you can blame on Caitlin Clark.
The Lauren Jackson and Brianna Stewart comparison is real basketball history. Bird's Seattle Storm career genuinely began alongside Jackson, a top-tier all-time talent, and later included Stewart, another top-tier talent, both won via genuine back-to-back number 1 draft picks.
But to go out and try to blame Caitlin in the first half, when she had one of her best halves of her career. I don't think people understand. Caitlin Clark generated 6 wide open layups. Those assists, 5 of them I think were to KK Timpson, and they were open layups. Open layups. And you're watching a highlight table for just generating passing the ball to people constantly for wide open layups, and it's oh yeah, the turnovers are the problem. It's what the fuck are we talking?
The closing argument that a ball-dominant, shot-creating point guard in Clark's mold is less likely to play alongside that same level of accumulated star talent through the draft is a legitimate, if provocative, roster construction theory worth considering on its own basketball merits.
That was a massive, massive reason they were down at halftime. KK was as well. And Lexi, in fairness, Lexi was okay. We got nothing in the first half from Kelsey Mitchell. And then the reason why it went from being a tie to a 20-point win was because Kelsey Mitchell decided to go Super Saiyan in the second half.